Welcome again to Data Lab Dialogues, a podcast out of the Experience Center in Copenhagen. My name is Thomas Madsen. I'm Enterprise Architect with SAP. With me today I have Carl Bergström.
Hi Thomas, nice to be here again in Copenhagen. It's sunny weather today.
Oh yes, with the boats in the background. One last time, of course, some of you will know that SAP is shifting to another office. Then the boats will not be there. But today, actually, we have a very special guest, as always, I guess. But this time, Girish Gupta from Maersk. Welcome, Girish.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Carl.
Nice to have you here.
So, Girish, you have been 19 years living in Denmark.
Yeah.
What is the best thing about Denmark?
Well, first of all, Thomas and Carl, many thanks for inviting me here. Delighted to be here and sharing my experience with your audience, which I think you have got quite a niche audience nowadays.
A niche,
right?
For sure.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, so, well, it has been, I would say, right. I have been here 19 years and I have gained quite a lot, both personally and professionally. It has been, I would say, incredible these 19 years. And when you talk about what I like, definitely, I mean, Denmark, very peaceful, serene, calm. You know, it's very structured, and you know every day what you can expect, right? And if I have to talk about what I don't like, and that's definitely the winters and the wind.
Okay.
Yeah.
The lovely raining from horizontal direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Winters were nice when we had snow, but
Yes.
without snow, it's a little bit dull. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
Agree.
But it was not Denmark that we were going to discuss today, Girish.
No.
But we have been in dialogue on many occasions earlier on, and we know that you are working a lot with data at Maersk, so that's kind of what we need to explore today. But before we get down to that, could you tell us a little bit about your background, your story, and your current, say, business?
So I guess as you guys already know, I come from India, and I started my career in SAP way back in 2002. And I have been fortunate enough during these course of these 20 years that I have had many different roles and opportunities. So started my career as an ABAP developer, moved into the integration.
Same here.
Yeah, moved into the integration, then have managed projects, deliveries, have led functional teams as well. And in my current role, I'm leading the reporting and analytics engineering team for SAP in Maersk, where we are responsible for rolling out new analytics solution for the SAP area. And then I'm also leading the global Concur rollout for the group.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of a varied
Yes.
set of tasks. So it's
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's your management skills that come into play in these different roles there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How big is the team?
Well, we are 30 plus members.
Ooh, yeah.
And because we are on this insourcing drive where we do everything in-house.
Okay.
So we are not doing business with any of our partners. All the development work that we roll out, it is done with our engineers who are in-house. Majority of them are based out of India.
Okay.
That's interesting because that starts to bubble around in the ecosystem of SAP. Was there a reason for this insourcing, or was it a deliberate decision going into this?
Yes. It has been a very deliberate decision, and this is an organization-wide decision taken by our executive leadership that we see technology as one of the core differentiators for Maersk, and this is where we wanted to do this in-house. And so SAP is not an exception where we have done the insourcing. It is going across all the areas. So we have done in be it SAP or non-SAP areas, and we are doing that completely in-house. I mean, we just had a launch of the SAP S/4HANA rollout for 37 countries, and I'm very proud to say this is done completely in-house.
Wow. Okay, so end-to-end in-house?
Yes.
Awesome.
So we are very proud to say that it is design, development, and delivery by Maersk.
Okay, cool. Did you do any quality assurance with SAP, for instance, or it's all on your own? Or?
Well, we definitely SAP has a big role to play in what we do. So SAP, I mean, of course, SAP owns the software, but then they are also our trusted advisors. So I can say in my area, we often rely on the counsel of the SAP product teams as well as the customer success partners and of course architects such as you in order to guide us in the right direction and give your valuable experience that you have learned working with so many other clients, right?
Okay, great. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about so basically the main objective in your department is analytics, as you say, and data management, I guess. In what way is that sort of shifting, changing, or in what way is it supporting the current business transformation at Maersk?
Yeah, so see, the transformation is a huge agenda at Maersk. Our leadership has announced the vision that we want to become a global integrator of container logistics. We have always been excellent in doing port-to-port delivery. Where we want to end up is door-to-door delivery. And that adds so much more complexity. Because now it's not only about where our ships are delivering the goods from one port to another, but it's also about taking that, storing in a warehouse if the customer needs it, using the right intermodal solution in terms of train, truck, barge, or whatever it may be, the custom house clearance, and there are so many components to it. You may need a cold storage. So there are so many components and so much complexity which is there, and this is where the role for technology transforms dramatically, right? So one of the things that our customers are asking for is the visibility in that supply chain, and we all know the risks that COVID has created and how much there is a need for having sustainable supply chains or resilient supply chains, right? So this is where the role of analytics come into play. Now, as far as SAP is concerned, we have implemented that for the finance areas where we are dealing with not only our finance and accounting, but it is about also issuing the right invoices to our customers, collecting that money from the customers, and also paying to our vendors in time, right? And the role of the analytics become extremely critical in this whole area where we can see what are the paying patterns for our customers. How is that we can optimize our cash flow, right? How can we issue the right invoices to our customers? And there are so many different use cases that we are working on right now.
And on that note, just, I mean, I think the audience who are listening knows Maersk very well from the big ships. But do you also, is it partnership with transporter inland, or do you also have the warehouses and trucks and trains and those?
Well, I know for sure that we have warehouses. So we are growing rapidly in the logistics and services space. So this is where we have acquired companies last year. So there are warehouses that we own across the world. But you also have a large supplier network all around the globe that you are then trying to get visibility through the full supply chain. Okay.
So you use the term intermodal. Perhaps you should explain that term then, because not everyone will understand that, I guess.
So see, when we think about a shipping company, we often think about, say, as I said, we are very strong in the port-to-port operations. So if we take an example of, let's say there is a cargo that needs to be delivered from somewhere in China and needs to be delivered in, let's take the example of Germany, in Munich, right?
Munich,
Yes, so Munich is not a port city. I guess it is not. So then what would it mean is it will go to the ship will go to the nearest port or wherever it is scheduled to reach. And from there, the cargo has to be then taken out and then it has to be offloaded and then eventually shipped to the customer wherever the location is, right? In this case, we are talking about Munich. And this means that there is a solution that has to be found on how the container moves from the port till the warehouse that the customer prefers in Munich. And there it could be different solutions depending upon what the network in that country is or the neighboring countries are, right?
Yeah, okay.
So this is basically means on the land operations.
Okay, got it. Right. So analytics then, that's
Yes.
A key point. Can you tell us a little bit about the architecture at Maersk? I understand that you're using BW4, not just one, but also Analytics Cloud, and I'm sure a range of other solutions.
Yeah. So what we have is we have a legacy estate, and now we are having a greenfield S/4HANA implementation. Now, as far as our legacy estate is concerned, so what we have in there is 2 ECC systems, one catering to our ocean business and another one catering to our logistics and services business. So historically, we had 2 separate BW systems which were connected to both of these environments. In our legacy estate, now we are under that transformation where we are looking to decommission those BW and the BWA and consolidating data into one BW4 HANA environment, which we call as the legacy BW4 HANA, because this is an interim state. Eventually, we will be decommissioning all of that, right? But it's an interim investment for a certain number of years. And then we have with the Greenfield S/4HANA implementation that we are doing, and we took that conscious decision because we wanted to have a blue sky thinking in our S/4HANA implementation and not just go with how we had done in ECC, and we had customized our solution quite a bit. So we want to have this standard core as part of our S/4HANA implementation. So this is all done on the Microsoft Azure as the data center. And then what we have is we have the BW4 HANA, which is connected to S4HANA. And then we have the SAP Analytics Cloud as the visualization layer. So BW4 HANA serves as the solution or the platform where we are consolidating the data, both from the ECC systems as well as from the S4HANA system. And this is very important for us, especially during our transition journey as we go from ECC to S4HANA, which is not a journey of just 1 year. It will take us a few years before we go live in all the more than 130 countries in order to continue with our global reporting. Because look at it this way, when our OTC leadership or order to cash leadership, which is looking at our collections, they would like to get a global view. For them, it doesn't matter whether the data is sitting in ECC or it is sitting in S4HANA, right? Similarly, when a regional manager who is responsible for a region comprising several countries, if some of them are on S4HANA and some of them are ECC, he wants to have the full view, right? And that's the part that BW4 HANA is doing in consolidating and harmonizing that data together, because the underlying data models in ECC and S4 HANA are different. And then we use SSE for the visualization with all the capabilities it has in terms of the not only producing the nice chart and graphs, the geospatial features and all that, but also some of the smart insights that you can have from the data.
Yeah.
On that note, you said one word which I think a lot of customers have a lot of struggle with, the blue sky approach, where you thought, let's not copy what we had.
Yes.
How can you reflect on the difficulties with that, or if it actually has helped you in any ways to not being, because a lot of stakeholders out there are used to getting what they always have had.
Yes. Well, I would say it is a difficult journey in that sense. While the leadership had a very clear thought that we want to go ahead with blue sky thinking, where we do the process re-engineering right from the beginning, but the people are actually used to running those processes for many years, and it is difficult to get to leave them behind. And this is where you can say the rigor and the discipline comes into play, where every time you are talking about a custom development and enhancement to the solution, then you question the validity of it, you question the validity of the business process, and then you also look at some of the data behind it to know whether what the business is stating, whether that's a fact or it is not a fact. And I would also state that the direction in which SAP is moving now with the BTP with the code extensions and with the low code, no code developments with the SAP build, the ability to do these developments outside the core will help a lot for customers like Maersk in order to ensure that when it comes to the future enhancements of the SAP S/4HANA, that goes smoothly. And if I can just add one more comment to it, right? We went live with the new release, as I spoke about, with 37 countries yesterday.
Wow! Yeah.
And before that, just a month back, we also did a version upgrade for S/4HANA, and that is also done in-house, right? So you can imagine the kind of agility with which we are moving.
Yeah. Oh, so may I ask then? So you did a version upgrade of S4. I guess that entails, development, QA, and production, or
we have a four-stage, four-tier. Yeah.
And how long was the process, and how much development freeze did you have in that period?
Yeah. So what we did was we ran our release that we just went live with 2.2, and both of them, they were working in parallel. So you can say we planned the whole upgrade sequence in a sense that the testing for your upgrade and the next release goes in parallel. So we can leverage the benefit. We can leverage the benefit from there. So what it meant was that in terms of, since we also want to have the agility in our S/4HANA implementation through release of new features and enhancements, so there we had a freeze of only about 2 months.
Oh, okay. But the plan is to release new, let's say, BTP-enabled add-on perhaps, and new features in your S4 system independent of let's say, these major releases,
yes.
but leave it sort of more like CI/CD, continuous integration and development.
And there are approaches, horses for the courses, right?
Okay,
horses for the courses. So which means it depends upon what system and platform that we are talking about, right? Because S/4HANA is such a well-integrated system, you need to understand the impact of releasing any new feature before you really release it, right? Because there are so many users who are using the solution at the moment. But then in other solutions, such as if I talk about in my area, SAP Analytics Cloud, right? Where we need to put some new features in. We can do that with much more agility because there we can control the scope much more, or we know the impact area. And same goes if I talk about the Concur. We are much more agile because the platform allows that. And that increases the agility at which we are able to bring new features and functionality to our business.
That is actually quite interesting because sometimes when we meet customers who are traditionally ECC, why didn't you put everything in one box? But then there is a consequence with that because then the impact, you need to take care of everybody who is in that box. Now you have a composable architecture.
Yeah, exactly, to a certain extent, but you still have the S4, which is sort of touching a lot of people. But that's an interesting discussion. Do you see, let's say, an opportunity, if you will, to decompose bits and pieces of what you have in S4 so as to make that more agile as well? Or is it, finance is finance, it's just, completely entangled in each other?
Well, if there is an opportunity, right, we haven't really put that lens on right now because we are so busy with the rollout. That's our focus area at the moment, though we continue to want to release more features and functionalities. But of course, we are, at the same time, we don't want to take too much risk on our shoulders.
No, of course not. Okay. So we touched a little bit upon rolling in the information, and you said that in Analytics Cloud it's simpler to roll in information. But can you tell us a little bit about the process of developing the solutions within Maersk? Where does the ideas originate? Do you kind of just explore stuff and what's the approach to innovate?
Yes. So we have a platform-based approach, and what does that actually mean is that for each of so what we have defined as a platform is, you can think of it as a tangible business function or an outcome, right? And what we have is an approach called two in a box. So which means that there is a technical owner and there is a business owner who are jointly responsible for the priorities, for the outcomes, for the budget, for the resources within that function.
Okay.
So these two people, both a business owner and the technical owner, they are jointly taking the ownership and the decisions. So it's not like technology is moving in one direction and business is moving in another direction, right? So these are two joined at the hip.
So the business owner is sort of organizational-wise in the business?
Yes.
And the technical owner represents IT? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And the same approach is then cascaded down the organization. So for example, I have a counterpart in business and both of us jointly decide on what should be the priorities for our team. Of course, we get the cascade of the priorities from the leadership as well, but we have certain flexibility at our own level, looking at the bandwidth of the people that we have, that which is the priority for us, right? So that helps a lot in ensuring that we are moving towards one agenda, right?
Yeah.
And then what we do is once these priorities have been defined through our increment sessions and product increment sessions or through the daily stand-ups where we keep on looking at what is now more relevant than yesterday and so on. So then we continue to develop on those features and then release them. As I said that we have horses for the courses. So depending upon what platform we are talking about and depending upon we do those releases. Right?
Okay. I never heard the expression horses for the courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, this two in a box is, I've worked on the customer side, and it's so traditional that one tries to get attention in the business, and we're measured on successful go lives or things like that. But
yes.
You are really same priorities that you need to manage, bottlenecks with resources, and you need to sort it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and this actually leads us into the topic that we briefly addressed in the beginning, basically the fact that you have insourced and then you are doing, I guess, not all development or most development?
All development.
All development in-house, yeah. And what does that mean from a process perspective? I mean, there's so much new functionality out there. I mean, SAP evolves all the time, but of course also our competitors and open source is there. Do you somehow, how do you leverage all that technology?
Well, I would say, and you're right, there is a lot to choose in the table and in any, I think, organization. It is not, I would say Maersk is not an exception where you will have so many different technologies that you can leverage. Well, one of the things that I firmly believe in is, one, what are the skills you have? And secondly, how you use those skills. And you can apply the same methodology when you're talking about a tool as well. So what are the features the tool has and how you use those tools or features, right? So in order to get the best benefit out of it. Now, one of the things working with SAP, and you can think of me as having a biased view in terms of SAP. All my career is in SAP. But I think the beauty of SAP is its ability to integrate within the SAP products, where you often struggle when you're talking about non-SAP to SAP technologies, right? And that brings a lot of agility when we are talking about new features and functionalities. So what we do is we try to explore. I mentioned already about the BW for HANA and the SSE. What I haven't spoken about, the planning functionality in the SSE that we are using, and also the data intelligence and how we are leveraging that. So if we talk about the SSE planning, in fact, our journey with the SSE started with the planning.
Okay.
So in 2020 is when we decided we wanted to have a planning solution. So this is where we looked at other solutions and we finalized on the SAP Analytics cloud. And well, we set ourselves a very ambitious target. We wanted to go live within a span of 3 months, and that too globally with more than 1,000 users using the solution. And when we went live, we actually went live after 3-4 months, where we managed to integrate the products, and then we having your ECC, the SAP BW, and then the SSE. We managed to go live, but it was, I must say, it was not such a big success. And the reason we found was that we were too ambitious for our own good. We didn't pay attention to the change management. And imagine for the users who are using Excel so far, and without any proper training that they were put on a product to use the SSE, and they have to follow certain rules, and then it was not such a good experience for them. In fact,
maybe
some
fully packed with feature and functions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to give an example, right? So SSE has a feature called disaggregation feature, wherein you take a higher node and say you put 500, and below that, then it will put the amount equally under that node, right?
Yes.
Now, this is a great feature, and we thought it was a great feature. But when our users, without understanding, they decided to use it, the whole numbers went wrong. Right? Yeah. So that put in perspective, and then, but the good thing is we learned our lessons, and this is where the technology team and the product owners, we got together, and then we laid down a roadmap to have a much more controlled release in order to ensure that we do the proper change management, and then we managed to go live with it, and has been a fantastic success. This is one of the good success stories which is often cited by the business leadership to our technology leadership.
Okay.
So they are really pleased about it.
Okay. So they use SAP for planning. It's not as if 50% is still using some other tools because they lack understanding. Yeah.
No. So this is we are using it for the planning our entire SG&A cost, and also our technology cost. They are done on the SSE planning today.
Okay.
Right.
Is the data, what happens with the data? Is it pushed back to ECC and S4 or these plan data?
No, we are not pushing that back into SAP ECC or the S4 HANA. So we use that planning data, and after that, it's mainly only for reporting purposes.
Okay. So you bring in actuals and then you follow up.
And then we do the budgeting and forecasting, and then we see how
and revise.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah. And how many users are there now?
More than 1,000, I think 1,100, something like that.
Yeah, and that's.
But that's only for the planning.
Yeah. Okay. So BI wise, is it also used then?
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, we have a number of different use cases, right? But if I talk about the SSE, we are mainly using it, as I said, for planning, and then the visualization capabilities.
Yeah.
So there we have from our finance data using the live queries, number of interesting use cases live. I already spoke about having the global accounts receivable data. So be it ECC, S4 HANA, so we are having that live on the SSE, and this is we are not talking about just few transactions. It is almost, we are processing 400 million transactions in order to produce that view for our leadership. And the way our engineers have done the job by utilizing the capabilities of the BW for HANA and the HANA database, we have been able to bring the performance to like 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
So you said that, so is especially the planning solution have let's say gained praise from the business. I understood that you have also experimented with the digital boardroom and that kind of functions. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually did the POC on the digital boardroom, and we have something called a tech demo day, which happens every quarter in our organization, where the different engineering teams, be it SAP, non-SAP, for the innovative solutions they bring in and pitch that in front of the business and tech leadership. So we presented that idea last year, and we were fortunate enough that our CTIO and the CEO, they were also there.
Yeah, good.
So they got to see the solution, and they were really, really impressed with the capabilities and the power it has. And I know that my leadership is behind me, that we need to have few successful use cases on the digital boardroom.
Yeah.
What I can tell you that we are very close to launching one, the real use case, using the data from ECC and S4HANA to bring that visibility for our revenue-related data.
Okay.
And is it then, because sometimes we have shown this with these 3 screens, or is it more the story of the digital boardroom where you click in from overview into the details?
Yeah. See, often we talk about what is the value of, say, SAP Analytics when you talk about some of the hyperscalers with Azure, Google Analytics, and so on. It's always about the business context, right? And what the digital boardroom brings here is combining all that business context in one story that is easy for leadership to consume. What you see on the screen with the touch functionality and ability to drill down and all that, it's an extra feature and adds to the glamour of it, if I can put it that way. But I think the real value is that when you are able to link those KPIs together and put it in a story which adds relevance to the agenda, right? To me, that is the major business value behind it.
When the data becomes visual and understandable.
Yeah, so you make meetings much more productive because you are using the system to look at the different slices and dices of data. We plan to have the what-if scenarios, so simulations, so on the relevant use cases wherein the leadership can see if they take a certain decision, what is the impact on those KPIs, right?
Yeah.
So that can help in faster decision making.
Yeah. So digital boardroom, of course, is some sort of guided analysis. Someone IT is preparing in collaboration with business. How should we look at the numbers coming from Maersk, right? But I guess tools like SAC also offer self-service capabilities to analysts and, anyone who is interested in data. Are you using it in that fashion as well at Maersk, or is it primarily, let's say, reports that are validated that you bring?
Well, it depends, actually. Okay. So there are pockets where our user community is mature enough that they are able to do the self-service where they will develop their own stories. But there are other areas where it is more technology dependent, where my team will be delivering those stories for business to consume. Yeah. I think it depends a lot on the data sets as well. Yeah. Because if your data sets are very large, then we need to ensure that we are doing the right engineering in the BW for HANA for them to get the right performance in SSC.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Right. There's no point in discovery if you can't get a response.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, joining all kind of things, it can get really cumbersome if you don't know the smart structure of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I haven't touched upon actually the data intelligence.
No, but I was just about to ask about that, because we recently met in connection with a project that you are exploring to do machine learning on accounts payable, I think it was, or was it receivables?
Both.
Yeah, both. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, definitely. So what we are trying to do is to predict our cash flows. And there we are talking about the short-term cash flow. And our cash flow is dependent upon how much money we have to pay to our vendors, that's accounts payable, and how much money we are going to receive from our customers. So net sum of that is what our cash flow is, right? So what we are trying to do is we are utilizing different approaches in terms of what could be the different machine learning algorithms that will serve the best for us. And then we are also leveraging different platforms that we can use to actually deliver the right model for us. So there are two into play at the moment. One is, of course, in data intelligence, because it has the ability that we can use the Jupyter notebooks, write the code in Python to leverage those machine learning libraries. So that's one area that we are exploring at the moment. The other one is, I was pleasantly surprised with the BW4 HANA, or with any HANA database. There are machine learning algorithms which compact,
Yes.
right? Which I didn't know before we started working on this use case. So that's the another area that we are working on to leverage that. So we are pursuing both the approaches. And then for performance reasons, we have also agreed with our infrastructure team. We are not going to use the BW4 HANA for training our models. We will use a separate HANA database where we will train our models, and then we will use the results in BW4 HANA and expose them in SAC.
Okay, sounds great.
Have you got any indications that the algorithms and the learnings is giving some fruitful insights?
Well, I spoke about different approaches, but I didn't elaborate on that. So one approach that we started working on, where we try to predict behavior of each and every customer, looking at whether when he or she will pay the invoice, right? And there are different algorithms we tried, but I think eventually it was random forest which worked the best for us. But still, it is not the satisfactory performance, and I think my own sense is we ended up over-engineering over there. But the other approach that we have been trying, and this is where SAP has been helpful, there we are thinking about a time series model. And there we are coming up with a much simpler model which will be able to predict those cash flows, right?
And what is the, I mean, let's say you come up with a great prediction of the cash flow in, let's say, 2 weeks' time or whatever the horizon is. What will that mean to Maersk?
Well, that would be, it means that Maersk will be able to then manage their cash flow much better. To give an example, let's say we maintain, if we know in Australia as an example, we need $2 million next week, right? And so far we have been managing on historical, the way we have been managing always, right? So let's say we have been maintaining $5 million historically. Now we can remove that excess cash and move where it is needed.
Because you can predict that 2 million will be needed in 2 weeks.
And you can build some buffers, and hopefully will get better over time, and then we can bring that ratio smaller and smaller, and it means business will be much more comfortable in doing that, right? And we can make use of our cash flow much better.
And maybe let that money work elsewhere than being saved for maybe situation.
At zero interest rate.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
And this is not the only use case for DI we have.
Okay.
So what we also have is we have a challenge with the S4HANA implementation about the data quality.
Okay.
Now the DI has got these data profiling capabilities. So this is where we are using those data profiling capabilities in order to find out what those what the data issues are, and then that serves as for us to connect with the upstream applications which are sending that data into S4HANA in order to correct them at the source.
Right, yeah. So fix master data quality issues at the source. That's of course where you should fix it, but you need to monitor it and get information.
Because finance is at the end, right?
Yeah.
So we have the operations and the commercials in the front. And then if they are corrupting the data without knowing that there will be an impact to finance, so then this is where we are helping them in order to correct. So we as an organization...
So you're coming back with guidance of you are unfortunately sending this.
Yes.
And they might not know that they are doing it. But
And the other use cases we have built, and we are live on that, is the reconciliation scenarios. Because for finance, when we have the period end, because we operate in an environment, we have commercial and operations platforms which are sending these data into SAP, but end of the month when we are closing the books, we need to do the reconciliations to find out if we are doing the right accruals or not. So this is where we use the DI and the Python capabilities to reconcile the SAP data with the data which is coming from upstream.
Okay.
So we get those files from them for the month, and then we compare with the SAP data, and if there are differences, business uses that for doing the accrual postings.
Okay.
So that they, yeah. Okay.
Nice. But that's impressive, I
Yes.
think.
And when you're talking about, I mean, you are cutting edge, you are on the front line, and you said your team was building up. Can you find these people, or do you enable them within your organization?
Well, I have been fortunate in that sense. I mean, I'm still looking for some data scientists who can really help me with some of the predictions and the scenarios that we want to build. But I've been fortunate in the sense that some of the people we have been able to find, they are really good at upskilling themselves. So there are people in my team, though they come from the SAP background, but they have made it on themselves to learn Python, to work on the scenarios such as in the reconciliation I just spoke about.
Yeah, okay. So it is, I mean, so you upskill
Yes.
a lot of the staff. Yeah. But you are on a... okay. No, that's fine. Where was I?
Upskill.
Yeah. So basically, you don't have big issues, or do you also have issues recruiting?
Well, in a sense, yes. And this is where in certain areas we have been very picky in getting the right talent. It has taken us time to build this team. And in fact, there are still some vacancies in my team as well as in some of my peers' teams. But we are very conscious in ensuring that we hire the right talent.
Yeah. But I would argue, exactly as you mentioned, I mean, Python is one approach that is being used now to adapt SAP solutions. When we talk about adapting Fiori, JavaScript and similar, Java is also in use, which is sort of different from earlier days where it was very, let's say, proprietary, if you can call it that. That ought to, let's say, ease the recruiting effort.
Yes.
Because you don't need to have prior SAP skills or hardcore SAP skills.
Yeah, and this is, I would say, when I talk to my recruitment teams, right, and when I made these positions public in terms of the data science, and then there was, so our original request was a combination of SAP and data science, and then I don't think such a combination exists in the market. so after a time, we changed it.
Yeah.
So what I have told my recruitment team is that we want to focus on people who know data science and the machine learning.
Yeah.
So they have experience in those areas. Then on the SAP, we can teach them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's the approach which we are taking, because that's one of the core skills that we are lacking at the moment. But also to learn this area, right? For example, I am pursuing at the moment a postgraduate program from the University of Texas. It's an online course which is focusing on the AI and ML.
Yeah, okay.
And it's a hands-on Python programming course with tests every week.
So you will validate your staff's code. Yeah, that's great.
But now I'm just thinking, your former chairman, Jim Hammersmark, wrote this book, Dreams and Details, a methodology where he talks about if you want to reach the things, you need to know the details. Because there are certain areas which are so important that you better know this stuff. And it just struck me now when you said that you are also, being a manager, running a big team. I mean, it's important to know the things to be able to reach those.
Absolutely, and it was very important for me to connect with what my engineers are telling me. so I can understand that. Well, I come from the programming background, so in that sense, it was not really difficult for me to pick the programming language as such. But I think it was more important for me to understand the concept behind this whole machine learning, AI, and which is just so relevant as we have now heard the excitement with ChatGPT and so on, and this is just going to grow in future.
Yeah. Yeah. But one thing that I also took away from the meetings we had earlier on was that, I mean, yes, data science skills, Python skills and the ability to create the right models are important, but it is equally important to understand the let's say, the business issues and to understand where is the data, what are the types of data or types of business objects that we need to look at to identify, let's say, the behaviors that we are looking for, right?
Yeah.
So I guess this kind of work increases even further the need for this, two in a box collaboration where you have the ability to discuss and engage with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often see my role as a salesman as well, where I need to go and approach the business.
Yeah.
Because I often tell this to my manager as well, that my role is just not that I deliver what is needed as part of each S/4HANA release, right? Then I don't think I'm excelling at my job. My job is to bring the transformation journey even before those rollouts are complete by bringing the excitement around the analytics. And what I can tell you is with some of the products that we have delivered, and when our technology leaders, some of them have looked at it, they have been completely amazed that this is coming from a SAP product. Because they are typically used to seeing those gray screens and they cannot identify the outputs which are coming from here with actually this is an SAP output.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And thank you so much
Yeah.
for bringing out the happy message.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's then? So you are exploring predictive capabilities and planning will roll out, and digital boardroom is there. Are there any other, let's say, things on the horizon at Maersk when it comes to Maersk?
Well, yes.
Or SAP data. What I wanted to say.
Yeah. So. I would say there is a large agenda. I started by saying we want to become the global integrator of container logistics, right? And that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
We are on this journey wherein we are bringing the ocean and the LNS, the logistics and services, together into one finance system. And this will take some more years. We will be done with ocean by next year, but the logistics and services, because there are so many products under it, it will take some more time.
Okay, so it will not be two S4s.
No, there will be single S4.
So two ECCs merge into one S4.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So my ambition in terms of delivering the business outcome is that how can I help the organization in enabling this integrator vision, and what that translates in my own language is wherein I'm able to combine the ocean and logistics and services data together to get these insights. Because in many cases, the customers we are dealing with will be the same. The vendors that we are dealing with may be the same. So then how can we combine those insights together in order to help the business in having more useful discussions with our business partners?
Okay. Wow.
To really make data useful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And breaking up the silos.
Yes.
The two sides start looking at the same end-to-end perspective.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that of course requires a lot of reflecting, I guess, but I guess also some experimenting. And I know you mentioned the fact that the fact that you have insourced and you do everything yourself actually means that you have the opportunity to initiate projects much more simple than if you were to write a huge requirement spec and then submit an RFP for someone to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now the discussions are no longer on that first you talk about the business case and you bring that for the approvals and you reach out to the vendors, then you create a purchase orders and you agree on the scope, and then you know, the whole cycle. You do away with the whole cycle. As two in a box with my counterpart, if we think that there is a bandwidth for it, if we think that this is a good enough use case for us, to pursue, then we have the liberty to do that.
Mm-hmm.
To give an example, I just now engaged the stakeholders from our procurement organization, which is not even sitting with finance, where we see a gap and a need, as Maersk also wants to become more sustainable in its operations.
Yeah.
We want to give an insights for our business travelers to see what are their carbon emissions, right?
Yeah.
And combined with the expense data. So this is where I'm engaging with them, that we get one report from American Express for the business travelers, where there is also the carbon emissions.
Yeah.
We have the expense data in Concur, and there is a connector between your Concur and the SAC. Can we look at where we can provide all that data to our business travelers, where they can see what are their carbon emissions and what are their spends during the course of the year, right?
Yeah. Okay. Will you then sort of provide bonuses to those that has the lowest sustainability impact? You never
Who knows?
know. Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
At least, one can see you don't want to be on the shit list, being one of those who have polluted the most. There must be some kind of maybe better to show those who are good, but there are also those who are not that good, who ignore it. I can just imagine those monthly meetings showing, here we have the 5 good ones, and here we have those who have not done it.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing that just I was thinking about embedded analytics. So we at SAP, often when it comes to analytics and S4, we promote the fact that, hey, operational reporting, you do it directly out of your S4 system with the inbuilt Fury. Is that something that you are pursuing, or is that?
It is very much being pursued. I would say we were not so good at during our initial releases. It was not promoted that much with our business users, but as we progress with our ongoing releases, so this is where we are making that point to our business users, that they see what are the reports that they can use from the system.
Have you also tried to embed Analytics Cloud into sort of the launchpad of S4 and showcase reports directly there?
No, well, this is something, on our to-do list. We haven't used this at the moment because of the concerns with the performance of S4.
Yeah, okay.
If we connect S4 directly with SAC, the risk that we foresee is that if there are too many reports which are running on SAC, which sometimes users can do that if they don't understand the impact, and that can lead to degradation of performance in the S4 system.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we have been careful so far. But as I was there in Waldorf a couple of months back, and I could see the agenda that SAP has, wherein they will be delivering more and more content for each of their products, where the reporting layer will be SAC.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I think this is an area that we need to pursue further.
Yeah.
How we can benefit from it.
Okay.
I have one. Sometimes we ask this question. Would you be able to give any feedback to SAP where we could improve, where you see they are from a maybe giving services, or that product is immature? Or do you have something there that where you say you can be better there, SAP on that?
Well, definitely. Over the number of years, we often had those dialogues. You may know about the revenue recognition challenges that we had within the organization, where we struggled for quite a bit of time. Now it is getting stable, and similarly in the analytics area, the direction SAP is now taking with the data sphere, which is coming in. I'm really pleased that SAP is evolving in that stage, in that path. But I would say a lot more work has to be done in that area, right? Because I think one of the things that I'm concerned about is still we are moving a lot of data around. And there we are talking about millions and millions of transactions that we have to move. How can we come to a state where we can use the data federation without moving the data, right? And I think those are some of the things that we need to work towards.
Okay. But I guess at some point you intend to test that out.
Yes.
Also with DataSphere.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that in action at Maersk.
Yeah,
actually.
and this is where you can say with the in-house team, of course, it gives you that liberty that you can choose when you want to try out the new products. But then also because people are so ambitious that they want to lay their hands on the latest gadgets, right?
Yeah, that's the lovely of having engineers around you. Very tested out to see how it. And you having the data, you have the volume, so it's really pushing it to can it cope with this kind of magnitude?
Yes.
So, I mean, one thing before we have to sort of stop very soon, but you mentioned that you have these, I can't remember what the label was, where the innovation boards, where you meet with business to identify priorities, I mean, to set priorities of whatever is missing. That sounds to me as if you have a rollout, you have defined a certain set of functionalities and capabilities that needs to be sort of created in order to fulfill the requirements that you have for the ocean and logistics business. Is there also some forum where you sort of think out of the box and are sort of exploring things that are not as such related to the roadmap that you have, but might actually improve in different areas?
Yeah, well, we have in our organization time to time some hackathons as well, where the engineering teams, they come in and then they try to test on the new ideas.
Yeah.
So some enthusiastic members from my team have also taken part in that.
Yeah.
Personally, I haven't had that opportunity yet, but so there are these forums, and this is where I would say lot of credit goes to our leadership team, who have changed this culture around, right? So there is a lot of focus on the engineering capabilities and skills. So tech is in the focus now, which wasn't the case a few years back. So I think that change in culture is for there to see and feel, right?
Yeah, I think we got a few new, what is it called, terms?
Horses for the courses.
Yeah, horses for the courses. Yes. And two in a box.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and it's always great to follow your journey, and looking forward to seeing the next step.
Absolutely, and well, thanks for all the support. I think I say that often in our analytics journey, there is a lot of credit to SAP. Talking to you as the architects, but also talking to the customer success partners who are ready to help us at every stage and guide us in the right direction, whether our roadmap is aligned with SAP's roadmap. So that's a fantastic partnership to me.
Awesome. Happy to hear that.
Yeah.